I still remember the exact moment I saw the photos. It was a Tuesday morning, coffee growing cold in my hands as I scrolled through Instagram, when suddenly, there they were, my entire family, laughing under palm trees I'd never seen. Cocktails, raised in celebration at a resort that looked like paradise. My sister's caption read, "Best family vacation ever. So grateful for these people." Every face I'd known since childhood was there. Every face except mine. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, ceramic shattering against the kitchen floor like my heart was shattering in my chest. I stood there, barefoot among the broken pieces, staring at image after image of the family vacation I was never invited to. There was Mom, radiant in a sundress I'd helped her pick out months ago. Dad, relaxed in a way I rarely saw him, arm around my brother who was supposed to be too busy with work to travel. Even my cousins were there, the ones who only showed up for holidays and birthdays. But not me. Never me. I scrolled through 47 photos, counting each smile, each embrace, each moment of joy that happened without me. The resort looked expensive. White sand beaches, infinity pools, staff in crisp uniforms serving drinks with little umbrellas. This wasn't a spontaneous trip. This was planned, coordinated, paid for. This was intentional exclusion wrapped in tropical paradise. My phone buzzed with a notification. A tagged photo from my aunt. Thompson Family Reunion 2025. Reunion. The word hit me like a physical blow. How do you have a family reunion and forget an entire family member? How do you plan matching t-shirts and coordinate flights and book rooms and somehow miraculously overlook the daughter who calls every Sunday, who never misses a birthday, who organized last Christmas dinner when everyone else was too busy? Called my sister first, hands shaking as I dialed. It went straight to voicemail, probably because she was still at whatever paradise they'd chosen over including me. Her voice, bright and carefree, asked me to leave a message after the beep. What message do you leave for someone who forgot you exist? Hey, it's me. Your sister. Remember me? I saw the photos. Call me back. But deep down, I knew she wouldn't. Not today. Not while she was busy making memories in a place where my absence was apparently so unremarkable that no one even noticed the empty chair at their dinner table. I tried Mom next. Then Dad. Then my brother. Each call went unanswered. Each voicemail I left sounding more desperate than the last. I was shouting into the void, begging to be seen by people who had actively chosen not to see me. And that's when the real pain hit. Not just the exclusion, but the realization that my absence was comfortable for them. They were having the time of their lives without me, and not one of them had thought to include me in their joy. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every family interaction from the past year, looking for signs I'd missed, clues that might explain how I became the family member they could vacation without. But there were no signs, no dramatic fights or unforgivable words. There was just nothing. I was simply forgettable, dispensable, the daughter they could leave behind without a second thought. This wasn't the first time I'd been forgotten. Growing up, I was always the afterthought, the +1 they'd remember at the last minute. When my sister graduated high school, they planned a celebration dinner and forgot to make me a reservation until I reminded them that morning. When my brother got engaged, I found out through Facebook like everyone else, 3 days after the family had already known. I'd spent 32 years being the optional family member, but somehow I thought I'd grown out of that role. I thought I mattered now. I was wrong. The memories came flooding back as I scrolled through more photos, each one a knife twisting deeper. I remembered being 12 years old, watching through the kitchen window as my parents loaded the car for what they called a quick weekend trip with my siblings. I'd asked why I couldn't come, and Mom had said there wasn't enough room in the car. I counted the empty seats later, when they drove away without me. There had been room. There's always been room for everyone except me. I remembered high school, graduation parties I wasn't invited to, family barbecues I heard about secondhand, Christmas mornings where my stocking was smaller than everyone else's because, as Dad always said, she doesn't need as much. I'd internalized their message so completely that I'd started believing it myself. Maybe I didn't need as much. Maybe I wasn't worth as much. But looking at these photos, seeing the pure joy on their faces in a place I'd never been invited to, something inside me cracked open. Not the gentle cracking of healing, but the violent shattering of a woman who'd finally had enough. They were staying at the Meridian Resort and Spa, according to the geotags. 5-star luxury, oceanfront, suites, world-class dining, the kind of place that costs more per night than most people make in a month. I Googled the resort, fingers flying across my laptop keyboard with newfound purpose. The Meridian had been struggling financially for 2 years, according to the business, reports I found buried in hospitality trade publications. Occupancy rates down 30%, multiple lawsuits from investors, rumors of a potential sale. The kind of financial distress that made luxury properties available to the right buyer, at the right price. And I was exactly the right buyer. Most of my family didn't know about the business I'd built over the past decade. While they were focused on their own lives, dismissing my work as that little online thing, I'd been quietly building an empire. What started as a freelance consulting firm had grown into a multi-million-dollar operation with clients across 3 continents. I owned properties in 4 cities, had investment portfolios that would make their suburban minds spin, and more importantly, I had the liquid capital to make moves they couldn't even imagine. I'd never told them about my success, because every time I tried to share good news, they found ways to minimize it. When I bought my first house, Mom said it was cute but small. When I hired my 10th employee, Dad asked when I was going to get a real job. When I made my first $1 million, my sister suggested I was probably exaggerating, so I stopped sharing. I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who were determined not to see it. But now, they were going to see everything. I spent the next 3 days learning everything there was to know about the Meridian Resort and Spa. Built in 1987 by a hotel magnate who'd overextended himself, it had changed hands 4 times in 30 years. The current owners, a real estate investment firm based in Miami, were hemorrhaging money and desperate for an exit strategy. The property was worth $43 million on paper, but financial records showed they'd take $28 million to walk away clean. I could afford $28 million. Hell, I could afford $43 million and still have enough left over to renovate the entire property. But I didn't want to overpay. I wanted to be smart about this, strategic. If I was going to buy the place where my family was having the time of their lives without me, I was going to do it right. My lawyer thought I was having a breakdown. You want to buy a resort in the Caribbean because your family went there without you? He asked during our video call, concern written across his face. Emma, that's not exactly sound business reasoning. But it wasn't about business. It was about power. It was about taking control of the narrative that had defined my entire life. For 32 years, I'd been the victim of their neglect, the forgotten daughter who accepted whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. Not anymore. I was done being small in their story. I was ready to become the main character in my own. The purchase process moved faster than I'd expected. Desperate sellers don't negotiate hard, and when you're offering cash with no financing contingencies, lawyers work overtime to close deals. Within 2 weeks, I owned the Meridian Resort and Spa, along with its 147 rooms, 3 restaurants, 2 pools, private beach, and the family who was currently occupying the presidential suite. I didn't tell them I was coming. I didn't call ahead or announce my arrival. I simply boarded my private jet, another asset they didn't know I had, and flew to paradise. The island was everything the photos had promised. Turquoise water so clear you could see the bottom 20 feet down, sand like powdered sugar, air that tasted like salt and freedom. No wonder they'd looked so happy in their pictures. No wonder they hadn't missed me in a place this beautiful. I checked into my own resort under my real name, watching the desk clerk's face carefully for any sign of recognition. But why would she recognize me? As far as the staff knew, the Meridian had been sold to a corporation, not a woman seeking poetic justice. I was just another guest, albeit one who happened to own everything around her. My family was easy to find. They'd claimed the prime spot by the infinity pool, spread across 6 lounge chairs like they owned the place. The irony wasn't lost on me. My mother was reading a romance novel under an umbrella, occasionally looking up to watch my father and brother play volleyball in the pool. My sister was taking selfies, probably for another Instagram post about their perfect family vacation. My aunt and uncle were napping in the shade, fruity drinks sweating on the table beside them. They looked so content, so blissfully unaware that their world was about to shift beneath their feet. I watched them for 20 minutes from behind my sunglasses, studying the family dynamics I'd been excluded from. They laughed easily with each other, shared food and drinks, took turns applying sunscreen to each other's backs. It was intimate and natural in a way I'd never experienced with them. This was who they were when I wasn't around. Relaxed, genuinely happy, complete. I could have stayed hidden, could have observed them for the entire week, and flown home with my secret intact. But that wasn't why I'd come. I hadn't bought a resort to hide behind sunglasses and spy on my family. I'd bought it to reclaim my power, to show them exactly who they'd been underestimating all these years. I walked over to their cluster of chairs, my footsteps silent on the pool deck. My sister saw me first, her eyes widening in shock as she lowered her phone. "Emma?" she whispered, like she was seeing a ghost. One by one, they all turned to look at me. Mom dropped her book. Dad stopped mid-volleyball serve. The ball hit the water with a splash that seemed to echo across the entire resort. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. We just stared at each other across the impossible distance of years of neglect and this moment of reckoning. "Surprise?" I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "Beautiful place you picked for your family reunion. Great choice." Mom was the first to recover, though her smile looked strained. "Emma, what are you doing here? How did you find us?" "Instagram," I said simply. "Your posts were very informative, especially the one about how grateful you are for these people." I gestured to the chairs around her, though I noticed you seemed to be missing someone. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. My brother cleared his throat. "We didn't think you'd be interested in this kind of trip. You're always so busy with your work." "My work," I repeated slowly. "Yes, let's talk about my work. It's been keeping me very busy lately. Busy enough to buy this place, actually." I watched their faces change as the words sank in. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something that might have been fear. My sister laughed nervously. "What do you mean by this place?" "I mean I bought it. The Meridian Resort and Spa. Lock, stock, and infinity pool. As of 3 days ago, I own every square inch of this paradise you're enjoying so much." I pulled out my phone and showed them the purchase agreement, watching their eyes scan the legal document that proved I wasn't joking. Dad stood up from the pool, water dripping from his shocked face. "That's impossible. This place must be worth 43 million, I finished, though I got it for 28. The previous owners were motivated sellers. I tucked my phone back into my bag, suddenly feeling lighter than I had in years. "So technically you're all my guests now. I hope you're enjoying your stay at my resort." The questions came all at once, overlapping and urgent. How did I have that kind of money? When did I become successful enough to buy a resort? Why hadn't I told them? But I wasn't interested in answering their questions. I'd spent 32 years answering to them, explaining myself, trying to prove my worth to people who were determined not to see it. The real question, I said, cutting through their chatter, is why you thought it was okay to plan a family reunion without including family. The real question is how you coordinated flights and rooms and matching t-shirts and somehow forgot about me entirely. The real question is what kind of people celebrate being together by excluding someone they claim to love. My mother's face crumpled. Emma, we never meant to hurt you. It wasn't intentional, wasn't it? I asked quietly. Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty intentional. It looks like you made a deliberate choice to have a family vacation, without me, to create memories I'm not part of, to celebrate your relationships with everyone except your daughter, and now you're upset because I created my own solution to the problem. I could have been cruel then. I could have had them thrown off the property, could have made their vacation a nightmare, could have used my newfound power to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. But standing there in the sunshine, watching them struggle to understand how their forgotten daughter had become someone who could buy their vacation out from under them, I realized something important. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. Here's what's going to happen, I said, sitting down in the chair they'd never saved for me. You're going to finish your vacation. You're going to enjoy my resort, swim in my pools, eat at my restaurants, and when you go home, you're going to remember that the daughter you forgot was powerful enough to buy the place where you made your memories without her. I stood up to leave, then turned back one more time. And next time you plan a family reunion, you might want to remember that I can afford to host it myself, at any one of my properties, with or without you. Walking away from them that day was the hardest and easiest thing I'd ever done. Hard because I was walking away from 32 years of hoping they'd see me, love me, include me the way I'd always dreamed they would. Easy because I was walking toward a version of myself that didn't need their approval to know her worth. I spent the rest of the week at my resort, but not hiding from them. I ate at the restaurants I now owned, swam in pools that belonged to me, walked beaches where every grain of sand was mine. I worked with my new staff, learned about the hospitality business, made plans for renovations that would make the Meridian even more beautiful than it already was. My family kept their distance mostly, though I caught them staring sometimes. I could see them trying to reconcile the daughter they'd dismissed with the woman who'd bought their vacation. I could see them whispering among themselves, probably trying to figure out how I'd become someone they didn't recognize. But that was their journey to take. Mine was already complete. On their last day, my mother approached me while I was having coffee on my private balcony. She looked smaller somehow, older, like the past week had aged her in ways that sun and relaxation couldn't counteract. I owe you an apology, she said simply. We all do. We got so comfortable with you being the strong one, the independent one, that we forgot you were also the one who needed us. We forgot that you were our daughter, not just the one who always had. Everything figured out, I nodded, accepting her words without absolving her. An apology doesn't erase 32 years of being forgotten, but it was a start. I'm not angry anymore, I told her honestly. I'm just different now. I know who I am, and I know what I'm worth, and I'm never going to accept less than that again. She cried then, standing on my balcony overlooking my beach, mourning perhaps for the relationship we might have had if she'd chosen to see me sooner. I didn't cry with her. I'd done enough crying for both of us over the years. When they left, I walked them to the resort entrance, playing the gracious host to the family who'd forgotten to invite me to paradise. They hugged me goodbye. Awkward, stilted embraces that carried the weight of everything we'd never said to each other. My sister promised to call more often. My brother said he was proud of what I'd built. Dad shook my hand like I was a business associate, which maybe I was now. I watched their taxi disappear down the Palm Line Drive, taking them back to their lives where I'd always been optional. But I wasn't the same woman they were leaving behind. I wasn't the forgotten daughter standing in the shadows of their happiness. I was the owner of paradise, the architect of my own joy, the woman who'd turned their exclusion into her empowerment. The Meridian Resort and Spa became more than just a business venture. It became my sanctuary, my proof that I could create the life I wanted without waiting for anyone's permission. I renovated every room, upgraded every amenity, hired the best staff in the Caribbean. Within 2 years, it was booked solid, featured in luxury travel magazines, recommended by celebrities and influencers who had no idea about the family drama that had inspired its purchase. But more than that, it became the place where I learned to celebrate myself. Every sunset I watched from my private beach was a reminder that I didn't need anyone else's approval to recognize beauty. Every successful quarter was proof that I'd been worthy of love and inclusion all along. I'd just been asking for it from the wrong people. My family and I have a different relationship now. They invite me to things, though I don't always say yes anymore. They ask about my businesses, my travels, my life, though I'm selective about what I share. They see me now, but only because I stopped making myself small enough for them to ignore. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if they'd included me in that first vacation, if I'd been in those Instagram photos with my cocktail raised in celebration. Would I have ever discovered my own power? Would I have ever stopped seeking their validation long enough to validate myself? I think about that alternative life sometimes, the one where I remained the grateful daughter, accepting whatever scraps of affection they offered, never knowing I was capable of buying my own paradise. It seems smaller now, that imagined life. Safer perhaps, but infinitely smaller. The truth is, they gave me a gift when they excluded me from their vacation. They forced me to confront the reality that I'd been living for their approval, instead of my own happiness. They showed me that I'd been waiting for permission to live a life I was already capable of creating. Now when I walk the beaches of my resort, greeting guests who've paid thousands of dollars to experience the luxury I created, I'm not the forgotten daughter anymore. I'm not the afterthought, the optional family member, the one they could leave behind without a second thought. I'm the woman who turned their rejection into her revolution, their exclusion into her empire. And every time I see a family photo on social media, every time I hear about gatherings I'm not part of, every time the old wounds try to reopen, I remember something important. I already own paradise. I don't need anyone's invitation to be happy there. The sunset tonight is particularly beautiful, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that no Instagram filter could capture. I'm sitting on my private balcony, overlooking the beach where my family once made memories without me, and I'm not sad anymore. I'm not angry. I'm not waiting for anything or anyone. I'm complete. I'm powerful. I'm exactly where I belong. And tomorrow, when the sun rises over my ocean, it will be shining on a woman who learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the permission to stop waiting for others to see your worth and start celebrating it yourself.